Yu was a young and kind boy who had endured a harrowing childhood. His parents, instead of showering him with love and care, subjected him to relentless verbal abuse, comparing him to a demon. This abuse soon escalated to physical violence, culminating in a terrifying incident where Yu's father attempted to kill him. Miraculously, Yu survived but lost his parents in the process. Orphaned, Yu was taken to an orphanage where he met the director, who introduced him to Mika and other children. Despite the warmth and kindness shown by these new companions, Yu was deeply traumatized by his past experiences and found it impossible to trust anyone. He believed he didn't need a family, having suffered so terribly from the one he had. Despite Yu's reluctance to socialize, the other children at the orphanage made every effort to befriend him and support him whenever he needed it. Slowly, Yu began to open up and started seeing them as his new family. However, their happiness was short-lived as a deadly virus swept through, killing everyone aged 13 and older. Yu and the other younger children survived, but their safety was soon compromised. Vampires exploited the chaos, capturing the surviving children to use them as livestock. Yu's orphanage was no exception, and they were all transported to a subterranean city. 4 years later, Yu and the other children were forced to donate their blood daily. Yu was fed up with this grim existence and yearned for freedom. One day, while venting his frustrations to Mika, they witnessed a horrifying scene. 2 vampires cruelly kicking and stepping on a couple of young kids who had been innocently drawing on the floor. Yu's heart ached at the sight, and he couldn't bear to see the children suffer. Driven by anger and courage, he charged at the vampires to protect the kids. However, as a 12-year-old boy, he was no match for the powerful, grown-up vampires. One of them grabbed Yu and dangled him over the edge of a walkway, threatening to drop him. Mika, terrified of losing his friend, frantically tried to apologize for Yu's actions, but the vampires ignored him. Just when all seemed lost, Farid, a noble vampire, appeared and stopped the others from hurting Yu. Mika greeted Farid with a smile, and the noble vampire invited him to his mansion that night. Mika agreed, leaving Yu puzzled about his friend's connection to the vampire noble. That evening, as Yu lay on the rooftop, one of the orphans called him in for dinner. Inside, the kids were overjoyed to be eating curry, and the one cooking told them to thank Mika for providing it. Yu noticed Mika's absence and inquired about it, only to learn that he had gone to Farid's mansion. He realized that Mika must have traded his blood for the ingredients to make the curry, and the thought left him unable to enjoy the meal. When Mika returned home later that night, Yu confronted him. Mika excitedly revealed that he had stolen a map and a gun from Farid's mansion, giving them a chance to escape this prison. Filled with hope, they woke up the other kids and made their way through the underground city toward freedom. Just as they were about to reach the exit, Farid emerged, explaining with cruel delight that he had allowed them to explore his mansion and find an escape route only to dash their hopes at the last moment. He then proceeded to mercilessly kill the children one by one until only Mika and Yu remained. Determined to save his friend, Mika grabbed the gun and attacked Farid, only to be impaled by the vampire's hand. Mika told Yu to run, but instead, Yu picked up the gun and shot Farid in the head. As Mika collapsed in a pool of his precious blood, Yu desperately tried to drag him to safety, but Mika pushed him away, urging him to leave while he still could. With tears streaming down his face and covered in Mika's blood, Yu fled the underground city. Upon emerging, he encountered Gurren and his team from the Moon Demon Company, a human military group fighting against the vampires. Gurren identified Yu as the hidden weapon from the Hyakuya orphanage and offered him a chance to fight alongside them. Heartbroken and full of rage, Yu clung to Gurren, vowing to become their weapon and destroy every vampire in existence in memory of his lost family. 4 years passed since Yu lost his family to the vampires, and his heart had grown cold and angry. Afraid to make new friends, fearing he might lose them too, Yu was placed in a military school by Gurren, who had not spoken to him since taking him in. Desperate for attention, Yu tried to get suspended, hoping Gurren would call him to fight. Out of the blue, Shinoa, Yu's classmate, poked him and told him he needed to behave. She delivered a message from Gurren. Yu wouldn't be allowed to join the army until he made a friend. After class, Shinoa gave Yu a note from Gurren, which irritated him. As he left, Shinoa followed him, explaining that she needed to write a report on his behavior. Suddenly, they heard a commotion and found their classmate Yoichi being bullied. Initially, Yu ignored the situation, But when the bully called Yoichi livestock, he couldn't help but remember the vampire's cruel taunts. Shinoa warned him that Gurren wouldn't accept him if he attacked civilians. As a result, Yu got beaten up and became a bullied kid himself. While running errands for the bullies, Yoichi shared his reason for joining the military school. He wanted to avenge his sister, who was killed by a vampire while protecting him. Yu bluntly told Yoichi he was too weak to join the army, which nearly brought Yoichi to tears. Suddenly, an explosion rocked a nearby building, and sirens blared a warning about an escaped vampire. Shinoa told the boys to find safety while she contacted the Moon Demon Company. Determined to prove his worth to Gurren, Yu's heart pounded with anticipation and fear as he sprinted back into the school. Grabbing his sword, he entered a classroom where he found a vampire about to sink her fangs into a student. Yu intervened just in time, diverting the vampire's attention towards himself. She decided to drink his blood instead, showcasing her incredible agility and strength as she evaded Yu's sword strikes and attacked ferociously with her razor-sharp nails. As the vampire lunged towards the girl she initially targeted, Yoichi appeared out of nowhere, driven by newfound courage. He tackled the vampire, distracting her and giving Yu a brief opening to attack. Enraged by the interruption, the vampire lashed out at Yoichi, but Yu intercepted her with his sword. The vampire then grabbed Yu by the throat and leapt out of a window with him. In midair, Yu managed to stab her in the abdomen, causing her to howl in pain. Though weakened, the vampire mocked Yu, saying she would drink his blood to regain her strength before the Moon Demon Company could arrive. Just as she prepared to do so, Gurren appeared, plunging his cursed blade into her heart and ending her life. When Yu asked Gurren to let him into the company already, Gurren replied that he hated brats who did not understand teamwork and refused. Just then, Yoichi, seeing Yu, ran up and hugged him, crying about how worried he was. He inadvertently knocked Yu out in his relief. Shinoa pointed out that Gurren would now have to keep his promise since Yu had managed to make a friend after all, much to Gurren's shock. While unconscious from the battle, Yu dreamt of his family from the orphanage. Mika told him they were glad he had made a friend because living for revenge was too painful. His family could finally stop worrying about him. As they walked away, Yu cried out for them not to go and reached out, calling Mika's name. He woke up in a hospital bed, with Yoichi by his side. Shinoa informed them that the army had approved of both their actions, and they were now accepted into the Moon Demon Company. After recovering, Yu was ready to take the next step as a member of the Moon Demon Company. Recognizing his growth, Gurren decided it was time to give him his own cursed gear, a powerful weapon possessed by a demon. Yu, Yoichi, and another kid followed Gurren to the ceremonial room where they would receive his cursed gear. As they walked, Gurren explained the importance of the contract ceremony. Each cursed gear contained one of the strongest demons sealed within, and they would need to find a way to be accepted by this demon in order to draw out the weapon's true power. As the ceremony began, Yu reached out and drew forth a sword with a green blade. In a trance-like state, Yu found himself walking through a realm filled with clouds. The atmosphere was serene, but something felt off. He heard his name being called and turned to see Mika. Confused and suspicious, Yu demanded that the demon stop imitating his family. Mika commented that he thought touching on Yu's most vulnerable part would affect him, but he was surprised to see that Yu wasn't shaken. Yu commanded the demon to give up and grant him the power he sought. Black smoke poured out of Mika, who collapsed, and a formless black mass rose in his place. The demon revealed itself. The demon inquired why Yu desired power so intensely. Yu responded that it was for revenge and because he lost his family. The demon claimed it could give him limitless power for revenge, but suddenly, another orphan's voice interrupted, saying that it wasn't enough. Yu turned to see the lifeless bodies of his orphanage family lying on the ground. The children asked Yu if he was going to abandon them again and questioned whether it was fair that he was the only one who got to make friends and live happily. But Yu asserted that he hadn't forgotten about them. He screamed at the demon to stop and demanded the power to protect everything that mattered to him. The demon agreed to follow Yu as long as his heart remained strong, but warned that it would take over his body if it sensed any weakness. The demon introduced itself as a Suramaru and revealed that there was something inside Yu that was no longer human, likely due to experimentation. Suramaru advised Yu not to trust humans, as they could be more terrifying than demons or vampires. Yu awakened from the trance, holding the demon sword. Observing his peers, Yu realized that Kimizuki had successfully completed his trial. But Yoichi was still fighting with his demon. Suddenly, a loud blast erupted, and a cloud of dust filled the air. Gurren explained that Yoichi had failed, and the demon was now possessing him. They saw Yoichi, now transformed with sharp fingernails, pointed teeth, small horns, markings under his eyes, and slit pupils. Complaining about humans being a nuisance, he manifested a large green bow. Gurren ordered Yu and Kimizuki to kill him, but Yu disagreed, knocking the bow from Yoichi's hands. Gurren reminds Yu that the demon is inside Yoichi, not the weapon. Meanwhile, Yoichi relives a painful memory of his sister telling him to stay hidden under the bed while she sacrifices herself to keep him alive. Tired of hiding, he declares that he wants the power to protect his friends and destroy his enemies. At that moment, he manages to conquer the demon and pass the trial. Overcome with emotion, Yoichi casts aside the bow and runs to Yu, hugging him tightly. Gurren acknowledges Yoichi's talent but notes that guilt has been sapping his will to live. He encourages Yoichi to let go of revenge and focus on living to protect his friends. Turning to Yu, Gurren tells him to forget about his old family and embrace this new one, revealing they will form a squad led by Shinoa. With all three boys having acquired their cursed gears and demonstrating teamwork, Gurren decides to send them to the front line the next day to fight the vampires who are plotting to retake the city of Shinjuku. The next day, as the cargo truck nears the battlefield, the driver announces that they will arrive in just 15 minutes. The group braces themselves for the imminent fight. Shinoa, however, reveals that they are currently too weak to be of any real use on the front lines. In an effort to bolster their strength, she introduces them to a set of magic pills. Shinoa explains that these pills will enhance their synchronization with their demons, amplifying their abilities. Taking one pill increases a user's strength by 1.5 times, while 2 pills double it. However, she warns them that if they take 3 pills, their internal organs will rupture, causing severe harm or even death. Each pill lasts for 15 minutes, but leaves the user extremely vulnerable once its effects wear off. Yu questions Shinoa about whether this is the true way to harness the power of the cursed gear. Shinoa admits that mastering cursed gear requires dedicated training. Unfortunately, they are short on time, and this risky strategy is their best chance at making a difference in the upcoming battle. Upon arriving at their destination, the group finds Gurren cornered and defenseless, facing a menacing vampire. Shinoa quickly orders her squad to take the pills to boost their strength, rescue Gurren, and then retreat. The team follows her command, eager to save their leader. As they move closer, the situation takes a turn for the worse when Gurren gets stabbed by the vampire. Enraged by the sight, Yu shouts at the vampire to get away from Gurren. He charges toward the enemy, and with determination, he thrusts his cursed gear through the vampire's chest. The two lock eyes, and Yu's expression suddenly shifts from anger to shock. His eyes widen in disbelief. Yu is frozen with shock when he realizes he has just stabbed Mika, his long-lost childhood friend. Suddenly, Gurren orders Yu to use the blade curse and kill Mika, but Yu can't bring himself to obey. Gurren then tries to attack Mika himself, but Mika skillfully dodges the blow. Gurren punches Yu for his disobedience, but Yu apologizes and explains his connection to Mika. Tears streaming down his face, Yu feels immense guilt for having abandoned Mika in the past. Meanwhile, Mika and Farid, a vampire, discuss what to do with Yu as more noble vampires arrive on the scene. Seeing the danger, Gurren orders everyone to retreat, but Yu's escape is blocked by Farid. Farid taunts Yu, asking if he wants to play a game, which triggers Yu's painful memories of the vampire killing his family. In a fit of rage, Yu attacks Farid, but is unsuccessful in defeating him. As the situation becomes more dire, Mika offers to help Yu escape the vampires, urging him to leave everything behind. Confused, Yu questions why Mika is with Farid, the one who killed their family. Mika dismisses Yu's concerns and carries him in his arms, explaining that humans are exploiting Yu for their own purposes. Despite Mika's pleas, Yu refuses to abandon his friends. However, when Yu looks back at his friends, he sees Shinoa crying as she is bitten on the neck by a vampire. Yu's emotional pain triggers a transformation within him. His left eye turns red and blood runs down his face as he enters a trance-like state. In this trance, Yu encounters a Suramaru on a golden plane. He suspects she's trying to possess him, but she denies it, explaining that she's afraid of the monster inside him, which seems like a god bringing judgment to the world. In this mystical vision, Yu sees 7 massive trumpets and angels emerging from radiant beams of light. Asuramaru warns him that it's too late, and the non-human part of him is about to go wild. Back in reality, Yu starts transforming, with one eye turning completely black and a dripping, branch-like structure growing from his shoulder. Mika watches in horror as the transformation confirms his worst fears about humans. He tries to talk to Yu, but Yu only attacks him, destroying a gas station in the process. Crowley, a powerful vampire who has bitten Shinoa, approaches Yu. Yu swings his sword at Crowley with immense strength, destroying several buildings and leaving a massive crater in his wake. The destruction is immense, and onlookers can't help but be amazed and terrified at the sheer power Yu now wields. Crowley is initially unfazed by Yu's attacks, but quickly realizes the danger he is in. Yu, now consumed by rage, summons his cursed gear and uses it to engulf Crowley in a towering pillar of blackness. At the top of the building-sized column, a halo of light forms and then widens, descending down the structure. As the light reaches the bottom, it envelops the entire dark mass, causing it to shimmer and then explode with incredible force. After the battle, Yu notices Shinoa and moves toward her, consumed by a desire to annihilate all sinners. As he attacks her, Mika jumps in front, sacrificing himself to protect Yu from further heartache. Gurren shouts to Shinoa that she can still save Yu from his current state. Desperate, she leaps toward him and hugs him, begging him to return to normal. Yu finally snaps out of his transformed state, coughing up blood before collapsing to the ground.